Hello everybody, and welcome to another video with me, Ro, from Scalpel and Stem. Today's video is going to be one about carnivores, specifically Pinguicula, the carnivorous. It's often called a ping plant. It is a carnivorous plant that catches things like fungus gnats on the leaves. You can see they're sticky right there. So I'm bringing this one out for an example because I had received some pings in a manner I didn't expect, and I needed them to be somewhere quickly. And I had this rock out of my aquarium, and I didn't expect the pings that I put on this rock to survive because it came out of the aquarium and had nutrients and all that. But not only did this rock survive, look at that. They are stunning. It has thrived in here. And as you see, this is just a porous aquarium rack, and I have it in just a little dish, and I pour water over it quite frequently to make sure the pings stay nice and moist. But that led me to, if I can do this with an aquarium rock, can I do it with a 3D printed plate? So I went ahead and found a model that somebody had used. It's for a dice display. This is just my experiment. So it failed during printing, so the top part didn't print. But that actually worked out better for me because rather than having these small little trays down here, we have that big area in here. So I've cut out the center. What this is a lattice that is often used to provide support for the upper parts. It comes out pretty darn easily. And so I cut it off and sanded it out. And while it doesn't look pretty, let's see what we can do with it. I'm going to start this little guy just like I did the other one. This is reverse osmosis water. As with all other carnivores, I highly recommend that you use either reverse osmosis water, distilled water, or rainwater that you've collected in a non-metal container. That prevents any kind of leaching of the heavy metals into the carnivore water. They are sensitive to that kind of heavy metals. So I'm going to take sphagnum. I'm going to have to start small. Tuck it down into these little holes here. So I pack it nice and tight to make sure there's as much as possible for these pings to hold on to. There's not a lot of space to begin with, and there's not a lot of place. They don't have huge roots. You'll see when I pull the pings out. Pings historically don't have a ginormous root system, and that's why they are able to anchor themselves to rocky surfaces and still thrive. So a little in each of these. It's probably too much. Because we want it to sit down a little bit. We don't want it to completely pop out. We do want to give them a little cup to sit in. So I'm going to clean out all these areas. Over here. So that's probably all I'm going to do for a base layer. Oh, one more right there. That's a nice gap. For a base layer. And now we're going to go ahead and add our pings. Out some smaller and larger pings. Some have names. Some are no ID, like this guy. I don't know what this one is. But it's relatively lacking in consequence considering we're making this rock. I mean, I could label it, but I almost prefer to do it this way. A nice surprise as they mature. So I made a little hole in the sphagnum. I'm going to grab tweezers. I'm going to try and be gentle because, again, their leaves are how these guys get nutrients by photosynthesizing large amounts of sunshine. And I'm going to tuck him down in the best I can. There we go. We had a vendor show this weekend, and a couple of these guys had a rough ride home, so they're perfect candidates for repot right now. So again, this one's a little bit bigger, but you see the root system is especially shallow. I had these guys in a peat mix with sand and perlite. That's sufficient. It really just depends on what mix works best for you. This is a Marciano. The last one was another unlabeled one. I feel like That's probably one of the ones I got from Culture, which would probably make it a Marciano. This one is definitely not a Marciano. So what happened is this fell out of the pot, and when somebody put it back on the shelf, they put it back in the Marciano pot. So I'm pretty darn glad I was repotting this. This is not a Marciano, and the other pot is not labeled. So not 100% sure what this guy is. He looks like a Coors. He could be a Coors or a Pirouette maybe. But we'll tuck him right down in there and see how he grows. It doesn't really matter what he is with what we're doing. I think I'm going to put this guy. There's a little one. That should be perfect for the pot. That's the hardest part about working with pings. The soil, when it gets on their leaves, will stick because their leaves are sticky. So getting her tucked in is a little bit challenging. And it doesn't matter if you get dirt in the leaves. Obviously, these two are very dirty from whatever travels they had back from our vendor show. But it helps the plant if they're not particularly dirty. Oh, this one's decently rooted. I like that. Oops, I just broke it off. That's alright. Let's stick this one here. And then this one has some live moss sprouting on the top, which is kind of normal. I'm actually going to stick it in with the normal moss to encourage the growth there. But whenever I'm doing any kind of display, I enjoy adding live moss and lichen to add to that natural feel. I'm going to do this guy in front. Ooh. And we'll do this guy here on the other side. It's has a nice root system for its size especially. Now I fully expect these guys to multiply and fill in just like the rock did, the other rock. I'm kind of tempted to add maybe a few smaller ones in here, but I think that I am just going to leave it like this for today. So this doesn't have drainage. I'll be able to water the top and just have it soak in there. But I am going to put it on a tray only because the watering will get quite messy. I try not to get water on the leaves because it'll soak into the pirouettes or the top point of the pings. And if that happens, they can get rot in the inside. So I try and stick to the sides, make sure everything is nice and moist. And I'll do an update in a couple of weeks to see how these guys do in this particular setup. And then if it works out pretty well, maybe I'll print out some ping rocks after we get some commercial licensing for that stuff. So let me know if you like this kind of content in the comments and if you think there's something else we should do in the future. Happy planting!